We're just gonna DPS this boss, do some more of that, skip here, he died, we got our loot, and Flashpoint is over. We win! Sweet. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe and like the video if you liked it. Peace. What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 2 of this mini-series about how to be a better raider in Star Wars The Old Republic. If you haven't watched the first video yet, go ahead and watch that first, probably, so you can get a good idea of the purpose of these videos, as well as some basic tips for beginning raiders and beginning people running flashpoints. We talk about key bindings, about mouse turning, about not standing in fire, just some of the very, very basics. But things that you should practice when you first start raiding, so that by the time, running flashpoints, so that by the time you're level 50 and you're doing endgame content, it's already second nature to you. In this video, what we're going to really be talking about are the 4 roles in raiding, in running flashpoints, well, the 3 roles, excuse me: healing, DPS, and tanking. Talk about the classes and how they do these roles, especially Republic, because that's the one that I have more experience with. But we'll talk a little bit about the Empire too, if we can. And we'll talk about what you should be doing, what you should be expecting. Again, for this run, these are the same people we had in the last run. So we have an incredibly overpowered tank with Papa X Wolf. He's level 36. We are in the instance Athiss, by the way. Athiss is an instance, or a flashpoint, that you should be running when you're level 17 or 18, up to maybe 22 to 24, maybe like 22 probably. And yeah, so I'm level 26. I'm playing the healer, but yeah, I don't really need to heal in this instance. In this flashpoint, because Papa X-Wolf just doesn't take any damage. It's pretty sweet. So let's go on, let's talk about the roles. First, let's talk about the tank. Papa X-Wolf is our tank. Let's talk about tanking in general. So the tank, I don't want to say it's I mean, everybody's important in a group, but the tank is incredibly important. Having a good tank can really make or break your flashpoint experience. Now, on the Republic side, the 3 classes that can be tanks are the Troopers, the Trooper with an advanced class specialization of Vanguard, also the Jedi Knights, advanced class Jedi Guardian, and the Jedi Consulars with advanced class of Jedi Shadow. On the Empire side, the mirror classes are the Bounty Hunter, Specting to Power Tech, the Sith Warrior Juggernaut, and the Sith Inquisitor Assassin. And yeah, those are the 6, or I guess 3 on each side classes that are able to tank in this game. Tanking is very important. For those who have never tanked before or don't understand exactly what I'm talking about, the tank is the person who takes all of the damage, who tries to take all the damage from the enemies, we call them mobs. We talked about mobs in the first video as well. So you can see what Papa Wolf is doing right here is he is trying to gather up aggro on all of the different enemies in this room. Now, I do something incredibly dumb, but we're just playing around. I run up and I blow them all away from him. Probably shouldn't do that. If this was a more serious raid, if we were all level 20, I wouldn't have been doing anything like that. I would have been staying back and just doing my job. So the tank, the reason that they can do what they do is because they have special talents and special abilities that allow them to take extra damage without dying, be able to mitigate damage, take less damage, and they have just better health and stronger armor usually. Not so much with the Shadows and the Assassins, they don't really have. And the Knights, I don't know much about the Knights and Warriors, but I know the Shadows and the Assassins still don't get that great of armor. But it doesn't really matter. But in general, their armor gives them endurance, gives them strength, gives them the things that they need to be able to take damage and be able to keep on going with it. The great thing about being a tank is that you're the one, almost more than any other, the tank and the healer, but mostly the tank gets to dictate the speed at which we run the instances or the flashpoints. Because if your tank is not comfortable pulling multiple mobs at the same time, then you're not gonna do it. And if your tank is very comfortable with running through and pulling out an entire room at once, then you're gonna go through a lot faster. Just make sure the healer can keep up as well. The tank, really what he needs to be doing is gathering up all the mobs, making sure they're all attacking him, and then also he has to be very aware of his surroundings. Tanks more than almost anybody else. Now, if you're not a tank, you should be helping him by calling out. You know, if you see, so maybe we accidentally got an extra mob that was maybe around the corner, and he saw it, and he starts running in the room, call that out to the tank if you don't think he saw it. Or even if maybe he did, it doesn't hurt at all just to say, hey, hey, Papa Wolf, there's a guy coming around the corner. Hey, did you see this guy? Or if I'm the healer and I pull aggro, then I want to be able to call out and be able to say, hey, I got aggro. by this dude over here. Can you see him shooting me or whatever? And the tank can go ahead and go taunt, or they can go do an ability so they can get aggro back. Aggro is a mechanic in the game by which the mobs or the enemies decide who they're going to be attacking. Now, if you're just single, if it's just you solo questing, then you have 100% of the aggro, right? You are out there and you're hitting a guy and he's hitting you back. Now, once you get your companion, sorry, by the way, let's see if we can skip through this. This is going to be super unprofessional. But I forgot that we're waiting for someone. Let's see. Oh, geez. Now I've gone too far. Skip to here. Well, okay, we jumped in to go attack the boss. And yeah, I'm sorry, we were waiting for one of our group members. He was running really behind. So, that was pretty sweet. Anyways, shoot. Now I kind of lost my train of thought. Tanks need to... Dang it, I'm just going to pause. Okay, we're back. Whoa, that was weird. I had to actually pause and go listen to what I was talking about. That is so embarrassing. We were talking about aggro. So you're soloing, you just have the aggro, that's it. Once you get your very first companion, you'll notice that, because your first companion should be a tank. My first companion was a tank, right? So all of a sudden he runs up, he starts taunting the enemies, and all of a sudden they're attacking him instead of you. Now, you don't get to see the actual table. In other MMOs, you can get an add-on that can show you what they call the threat table, where you can actually see what percentage of the aggro is going towards you compared to something else. For example, when it's just you and your companion, maybe your companion has 75% of the aggro, you have 25%, which means that the mob is going to be attacking your companion. It's all about having the most aggro on the table. If there are 4 of you attacking it, then your tank might want to have 30%, while the rest of you have, 20 and then 25 and 25 or something like that. Well, the person with the most, they take the damage. In this game, it's a little bit tougher to know exactly how close you are to taking aggro from somebody else because there's no table. So you just have to pay attention to what you're doing. And the tank really has to be aware. He has to actually visually watch. The best way is for him to visually watch the enemies that are attacking him, and he can actually see, and they'll turn around. Or, or the lasers that are shooting him will start shooting someone else. He has to see that, or someone has to call it out to him, and then he can run over, and he can taunt them, and he can get the aggro back onto himself. So, let's say that you are a ranged damage dealer, or a healer, and you pull aggro. What is something that you should do? Well, the first thing that you should do is call it out. You should say, hey, I got aggro. Now, this is much easier to do if you're on a voice chat. If you have to type it, maybe just type AGRO or something. Even the aggro is with 2 G's, right? But there's something kind of like that, or like help, or like something. But then, if that enemy is a melee enemy, I mean they're going to come up and punch you in the face, you should run towards the tank. Don't run away. Don't back away from it and start running out of the room. You should run towards, right at the tank. And then you should run through him. And then if he doesn't pull the mob off you, you should circle around, trying so you don't get hit, right? But then you should run through him again. And you should stay close to him if you can. Now this works, I would say, or this is something you should do 98% of the time. Every now and then maybe you get a little unlucky, maybe you have to run in a big circle so you can use something, I don't know. It's very specific, and as you play the game more, you will learn. Those very specific circumstances, maybe that shouldn't happen. But I would say for now, always do that. If you pull aggro and it's a melee, he's going to come and punch you in the face, you run at the tank and keep sitting right next to him and tell him to pull that off. And as soon as he pulls the mob away, you back away again. That's the best way so that the tank can get it. Because the worst thing you could do is run away from this mob that's chasing you, and now the tank has to chase the mob chasing you. It gets kind of ridiculous after a while. So don't do that. Just run right at him. If it's ranged DPS, it's a little bit trickier. What you might want to do is try and get out of range, so the range DPS has to move towards you, or just, put yourself so that the tank is in between you and the range DPS, and just let him know. The tank has to, in that situation, the tank will have to run over or use a ranged ability to get the aggro. But most of the enemies in instances like this, you'll see almost all the enemies in flashpoints are melee DPS. Or melee enemies, whatever. Melee, whatever. Meaning they're going to come punch you in the face or try and bite your face off or something like that. Which means it's really easy for you to just run at the tank and keep running around him and through him so that he can pull it off. So that's the idea behind, that's the basic idea behind tanking. Now to play the actual tank in the game, I don't have a tank yet. So I couldn't talk about how to actually do that in this game compared to in other games. But in general, you want to use your taunt every time it's on cooldown because I played tank in World of Warcraft. I don't know if that counts. But in that game, basically, you're always, especially on bosses, you're just gonna, your taunt has like a cooldown every 6 seconds or every 8 seconds you taunt. You should just do it every 8 seconds. Boom, boom, just constantly taunting. But if there's like, multiple enemies, then taunt those. I'm probably gonna have Papa Wolf here. He's really, really good at tanking. I'll probably have him, maybe have him on for an interview or something like that, and we can talk about. That's a really good idea. I might do that tonight, actually. Doesn't matter. You're gonna find out once it's up on the YouTube channel. So that's the basic idea behind tanking and how to tank overall. Maybe I'll try and get a tank from each class on so they can talk about the specifics of their class, of their role. Now the next thing that we want to talk about is DPS, the damage per second. This is generally considered to be like the easiest. I don't want to offend anybody, but it's not very hard to do damage. But you still have to watch what you're doing. You still have to be careful. Now, if you're range damage, it's really easy to see if you're pulling aggro. If you're not range damage, it can be a little harder to see. Because the big deal. Here's the idea. The reason I'm saying this is because as range DPS, you have 2 jobs. One of them is to kill everything, and the other is not to pull aggro. If you there's the map. If you pull aggro, you need to get that off of you as soon as possible. Now, I'm going to be honest. If I'm a healer and we're actually in like a pretty tough instance, and the tank and you are both getting hit, and you're both getting pretty low, I'm going to heal the tank before I heal you, because you shouldn't have had the aggro for the most part, unless you have a really bad tank. And if you do, then get away from the tank. But we're going under the assumption that your tank is good and that your healer is good, and that you are just being an idiot and you pull aggro. Then probably I'm not going to heal you, or I'm going to kind of get mad at you before I do that. So how do you pull aggro? What's the idea behind that? Well, if your tank jumps in and he starts attacking maybe one of the enemies, maybe a mob, and you start attacking a different one, then you're going to pull aggro off of that mob, and that is bad. You don't want to do that. Instead, you should attack what the tank is attacking. That is the easiest way, because that way you don't have to worry about it. Because if he's hitting it and you're hitting it, he's going to keep that aggro 99% of the time, or something ridiculous like that. He'll keep the aggro almost all the time, because there's no reason for you to pull it from the tank, unless your DPS is just off the charts and ungodly good or something like that. So remember, just attack what the tank is attacking. It can be a little tricky sometimes. Again, in this game, we don't have a target mechanic, but that's okay. You could, for the most part, you get a pretty good idea of what the tank's attacking. Now, once the fights get more complicated, after this video, I'm going to do one about the Mandalorian Raiders instance. There's a boss battle in there where it gets a little more complicated, what you should be attacking or not attacking. You should mark them, and you can do that by right-clicking on the portrait, right down in the bottom right, the portrait of the person that you're targeting. You can actually right-click on that and then attach a raid marker to them. You can put like a little flame over their head, or like a lightning bolt or a shield or something like that. And you can mark things, and that way you can tell them, okay, first DPS, or first kill this, then kill first the fire, then the lightning bolt, then the shield, or make sure you don't touch this because we're going to lift that or crowd control this. Feel free to use the raid markers. Those are really good. Those are really easy ways for you to understand more about what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. I'm going to jump on a little tangent here and just say that remember that when you are in these flashpoints, I got an email. When you are in these flashpoints, your companions are useless if you have a full group. You can't have your companion out with a full group. If there's only 3 of you, 1 of you can have a companion. If there's 2 of you, you both can have a companion. Does that make sense? So a total of 4 overall, right? So there's 4 of you. You make sure your companions are working. I think I might have forgotten here. I can't remember if I forgot or not. Now, our tank had to go AFK, whatever. We're just having a good time, so we just keep going. Anyways, you should always have your companion doing something. Making sure that you're leveling your trade skills. If you don't know how to do that, I'm sure you do. And if you don't, Google it, watch on YouTube, you'll figure that out. It's pretty easy. But anyway, okay, so back to DPS. Don't pull aggro. If you do, get it off of you as soon as you can. I don't know if there's anything else about DPS. Okay, yeah, I know this is a little rant, but don't get like all butthurt if we kind of chew you out or whatever. I don't know. It's just DPS. It's fun. It's super fun, but it's not very tough. It's not very stressful sometimes. And if you're refuting that, the only reason I probably would guess you're refuting that is because you've never played a tank, you've never played a healer maybe, or you don't have a lot of experience with them. Because tanking and healing is a lot more stressful, I think, than DPS ever was. Which means that if the tank or the healer needs time, if the healer says, I need 4, so the tank says, okay, we gotta go a little slower, just do it, man, just give it to him, that's fine. Now, if you're not very happy with that, if you don't like the way that's going, and this is like a pickup group, then you should just go. And you don't need to say, screw this, let's find a different tank, let's do this. No, just leave. Because you're just going to be a pain in the ass the whole time. And instead of that, you should either be patient and you should be understanding, or you should just go and find a group that meets your needs better. So that's what that's the idea behind DPS, I guess. There's not much more to it. It's just have fun. Don't pull aggro, because jeez, don't pull aggro. That's so bad. And there you go. Now let's talk about healing. Yay! Healing. That's what I do. Of course, in this instance, and in the flashpoint and the one before, I wasn't actually healing very much because we're so over leveled. But in general, a healer, I guess you could say they're most important. I don't know. They're also important. I'm not even going to try and say who is the most important, because they're also important. But healing is critical. A good healer is an awesome thing to have. And I'm healing as a Jedi Sage. I am spec'd into the Seer tree, mostly. And I think I'm going to make a video about Sages. And about, at least level 26. Now I'm like level 29 or something like that. What you should be looking at doing, how your tree should be going. I'll probably do that in a different video, so that those of you who don't play Sage, you don't get so bored with it. But healers, our job is actually fairly easy. You just have to keep everybody alive. Now this can get incredibly stressful if your teammates aren't doing what they should be doing. If it's just the tank taking damage for the most part, then it's a piece of cake. Really easy. Just keep them alive. If everybody's starting to take damage, the healer needs to talk about that. He needs to find out why. Sometimes it's unavoidable. There are some enemies that do area of effect damage, AoE damage, to anybody who's close. And if you are a melee DPS, for example, this Jedi Athiss that we have with us, if you are this person, then you have no choice. You're going to take that damage, and your healer has to keep you alive as well. If you're ranged, then you then don't take damage, because just don't. You just stay away. So yeah, that's pretty basic. As a healer, one of the most important things you should learn, for any class really, but especially as a healer, is what your basic healing rotation should look like. As a Sage, I'll give you an example. At level 26, before now I have an instant heal over time spell. I can't remember the name of it because I don't know the names of spells because I don't read them. But at level 26, my basic rotation for healing, when I'm healing in my own level of instance or flashpoint, is as soon as the tank runs in to take aggro, as soon as he hits the boss, pop a force shield on him, and then you should be able to gauge and see when your force shield is about to break. The idea is, because my spells take a long time to cast, at this level I didn't have instant spells. My two spells took 1.5 seconds, and then I spec'd into the other one, Deliverance, so it took 2.4, I think, instead of 3. Either way, it's a long time. So you should be preemptively healing. If they are taking damage, if they're already getting really low, and your heal isn't like halfway through casting, that's not very good. You need to be able to judge, okay, my force shield is about to pop, which means I'm actually going to start casting this spell. I'm going to start casting it so that once they've taken damage, I pop them right back up to full again, or close to full. And that way you don't get surprised when all of a sudden there's a big DPS and all of a sudden you have to cast this spell, but you need it in right now, but you have to wait 2.5 seconds or something like that. You should be preemptively healing everything. Now you notice Yadnis started to take a lot of damage. I don't think I was paying attention very much, to be quite honest with you. This was just seemed so easy that I just didn't really pay attention to what was going on. But yeah, as a healer you should be preemptively healing. You should be planning out your rotation. You should find out what your most heal-efficient spell is. Because even though, for example, with us, the Jedi Sages have a spell, I think it's Benevolence, that costs 1.5, and it does, whatever amount of healing depending on your level and the level of the spell and things like that. And then we have Deliverance, which takes 3 seconds, and heals for more. But if you do the math, Deliverance is much more effective in terms of heals, like points healed compared to force used. And so you should really pay attention to that and know that, if I only spam Benevolence, even though it's faster, and it's healing less and it's faster, I'm actually spending too much force to do that. It's kind of like when you drive a car, and if you're just constantly accelerating and braking, compared to just driving at a constant speed or something kind of like that. You should find out what your force-efficient heals are, and also what your quick heals should be, and also what your basic rotation should be for a boss fight. Now you're going to notice in this fight, I actually start to heal a little bit more, because this boss has a special ability where, no, it's not an ability, he puts a damage over time on one group member at a time. Anybody that's not the tank can have this, but only one person at a time, where it does a whole bunch of damage to him. When I first got into this instance, like level 20 or something like that, I actually had no idea what was going on, and we died, and it was horrible, and but yeah, so people almost die, and And this was kind of crazy. I think we actually have to take a break. Someone has to go, or it doesn't matter. We'll get there when we get there. So with healing, preemptive healing, knowing and understanding your rotation, force management is also incredibly important. Knowing it's really important to just know a lot about your class and a lot about with Jedi about how much force, or with troopers how much ammo it takes to do your heals, and to understand what the consequences will be, in a sense. So you know that if you just they're spamming and spamming and spamming, that might not be the best. Maybe it's best to pop a force shield and then just wait. And let your force recuperate a little bit like that. Maybe give a little bit of time. If you know the boss fight, like for example right now, the boss has disappeared, right? So that'd be a good time. Maybe I wouldn't pop a healer right before that, because I know that he's about to appear, and and so I'll wait for my force to regenerate. That's kind of a bad example. But the general idea is just to understand very well exactly what's going to happen, what's going on, and what you need to be able to do to be an effective healer. Aside from that, the last thing I can talk about is just working together as a group, and having patience with each other, especially in this game because it's a brand new game. Oops, had to pause for just a second. Because this is such a new game, and there are a lot of new players, and there are a lot of people who haven't really done this before, or who don't know their classes very well yet. Just have patience. I can't tell you how important it is to just have patience, understand what's going on, and understand that you might have been, a hardcore level 85 and WoW, you raided 5 nights a week, but your group mates might not have been, especially if it's a pickup group. You have to understand that they might never have done that before, and this might be new to them. And so just have a little bit of patience, have a little bit of understanding, and remember that if you are not okay with how the group is going, maybe you should leave instead of trying to get other people to leave. And don't be a big douchebag about it, but just say, hey, I'm really sorry. This group just isn't what I was looking for. It's not what I was planning on running with, and I don't really have the patience to do this. And so I think I'm just gonna find a different group. Now this is kind of ridiculous. This is where this thing kind of glitches out. I'm gonna skip forward again. What's going on? No, because he does this. Yeah, so we didn't want to. What happened is one guy, he DC'd or something, and so we just decided not to do anything. We're just gonna sit here and chill with the boss, not attacking him or anything like that, so we could kill him when the guy came back. Then they ended up glitching out, so that's why we're just chilling here. But the boss ended up glitching out, so we had to do this fight again. There, now we're in the middle of doing this fight for the second time, which is kind of a bummer, but whatever. You gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, have patience with each other, and have understanding, and be ready to teach, and be ready to learn, and be ready to listen, and know that it's just a game. Now, it's a little bit different if you are maybe in a guild, and maybe you're all practicing friend game content. Well, sure, then maybe you can be a little bit stricter on yourself, and maybe a little bit on each other, and you could maybe require a little bit more from each other. But for the most part, just patience, just have a good time, and just learn, and just learn about these things. Lastly, don't worry so much about these specific instances. Don't worry about, I don't understand Athiss, or I don't understand this, or my gear isn't good enough for that. All that doesn't matter as much, because in about 3 levels you'll be over level and it won't even matter anymore. You should definitely run these flashpoints for learning and for fun, and just experience running as a group. But it's just not a huge deal, because you just play for a couple hours and all of a sudden this one doesn't matter anymore. You're on to the next one until you get to the end game, and that's when it really starts to matter. But other than that, I think you guys are going to be set up. I think you're going to be ready to rumble, set up for success. My favorite little phrase: set up for success. And there we go. This boss is close to being done. Look at him just dancing like a douche. Okay, I'm trying to think of what else I can talk about. This is kind of really super unprofessional, huh? I'm just sitting here rambling and rambling. No, but I think it's important to know. Let's see. Oh, another thing you could do is you could plan out your class in advance. It's really good to check out talent trees and know kind of where you're going to take your class. And make sure that you understand what abilities are important, what abilities aren't important. You probably already know all that. I think I am going to stop rambling. Let you just enjoy the end of this video. Maybe I'll put on a song, or maybe I won't. We'll see what happens. Oh, I know. How about I just skip to the end?